Hello, hello, hello. Hey, is this on? Benjamin back in here. Let's do another quick video. I had some thoughts about staying or going, staying or going, post divorce. Um, I guess let me start by saying my son and I, what we did this weekend. There's a big festival they have up in Estes Park, Colorado, every September, and I've gone a couple times now. I think the last time I went, I was still married, and he was a little tiny guy then. But I think we went a couple times, couple years in a row, and haven't been in a while. So I wanted to go up there with him, and it was a lot of fun. I think probably more for me than it was for him, um, but it was really fun walking around with him and seeing people dress up for this event. You know, so people have cool costumes on, and there's big horses there, and there's like a strength um, competitions. You know, they do like the caber toss and these almost like shot put. You know, you have a big metal ball and you have to try to throw it up over this bar, and they keep raising the bar, things like this. And it was fun to watch him watching these things, and the music and the bagpipes, and it was very enjoyable to me to watch him and to enjoy him enjoying things. Right, the thing that I missed, that I lost track of time, was the jousting. You know, the horses, and they kind of joust or play joust anyway, and a lot of fun. We got to watch the dogs chase the sheep around, things like that. Just great fun. And he got a free little toy, little police car and stuff like that. He thought was pretty cool. And then after that, we went downtown and played in the river for a little bit, and visited a toy store. Just goofed around. It was great. But on the way out of town, up there in Estes Park, this time of year, the rut is going on. The rut is going on, which is mating season, right? So the elk are fighting for um, dominance hierarchy, and so to have breeding rights to the females. So anyway, when the elk are right in the middle of the city, you know, in the middle of the town, people always pull over, and I saw a bunch of cars pull over. And I said, "Oh, there's got to be elk up here," and sure enough, there was a big harem, I guess, of elk herd of females, and there's a massive bull. Um, and so we get out of the truck, and we get closer to this field that, you know, it's in the town, and you can get pretty close to them. Never get too close to them. That's a bad idea, but like tourists tend to do, people from California probably, Californians coming to Colorado to visit, get right up close to those elk. And boy, there's a big lady got too close, and the elk started coming down after her, and she was running as fast as she could, poor lady, on those chubby legs, to try to get out of there. Anyway, there's a point where we're gonna leave. We watched it for probably 45 minutes to an hour. Oh, it's just so much fun. And my phone was broke, so I didn't get a chance to take any good pictures anyway, or video. But we get in the back of the truck, and we're just watching. And I was, oh, and there's a young bull coming up the kind of up the road, and he walked right past our truck. I mean, just feet from us, man. It's cool. He was a younger buck with shorter, not as developed a rack of antlers like the big bull. I said, "Watch this, and there's gonna be a fight." And the young bull goes over into the field, and as soon as the big male bull, the mature guy, notices him, he chases him. Right, comes across this field, like, "Watch, son, watch," and he chases him. And that elk, the smaller one, the way it was pitted, there was a lot of cars, so people were pulled over. He comes right past our back of our truck. Um, Excuse me, I take that back. He kind of comes back towards the back of our truck, turns right, and goes around the front of the truck. And my son turns around, and he's holding his chest like this, and he's like, "Dad, I thought he was gonna jump into the back of the truck." And the big bull, he starts bugling off, right? And you know, it's very loud. It's very amazing, and it was so much fun to watch my son being in absolute awe of nature, of creation. Oh, it was amazing. Oh, it was amazing. It was incredible. And I point to that to say, you know, I'm finding as a parent, as an adult, you know, parent, a lot of the stuff that I do is because I want him to, his curiosity to be piqued. I want to him to be happy, of course, but I also want him to struggle a bit with things and figuring things out. But I get more joy than he does, I think, out of watching him get joy, right? And so this is what I want to talk about: staying or leaving, post divorce. I was just having this conversation, through text message, I suppose, but I've been having a back and forth with this lady that I know who's a real feminist, and nice lady, real fun to talk to. She's cool, but we disagree on a lot of things, and she's I wouldn't say she's anti-male, anti-father, but she's definitely she might be. I don't really know that for sure. Anyway, and so we kind of butt heads. It's kind of fun, but staying or going, and where I was going with that is I don't know any single fathers. I don't know one. I know some single dads that are much older than I am, that their kids are like out of school now, or like in college now, or finishing college. I know some single dads, but I don't know anybody like roughly my age in my area. I know they're here that have parenting time. I don't know any. And that's very odd to me, and quite a bit discouraging, actually. Not having, there's plenty of men that are divorced. I meet them pretty regular, but they're usually much older, or they don't have like a parenting situation. Their kids live in another state, things like this. So all that to say, dads, and I don't think this is fully their fault, and I can get a lot of heat from that. But honestly, if you've been through divorce court mafia, if you have been forced to pay your earnings to really to the state, because a percentage of child support goes to pay divorce court judges' retirement plans, if you can believe that or not. That's actually true. So there's plenty of incentive for the state to garnish and take money from a dad. And most of the time, vast majority of the time, divorces are not filed by the husband. They never wanted out in the first place. Now, there's a lot of situations where people just get pregnant, they were never married, and then the woman decides to move on. Very common, married or not, that the male party never wanted out of the relationship. Very, very common. I mean, it's not even a question, right? Again, and people get super pissed at me when I say this stuff, but it's also affairs usually happen by physical affairs anyway. I don't know about emotional affairs. Still looking into the data on that, but physical affairs usually happen by the wife, not the husband. And anyway, all that to say, I understand why dads don't stay after divorce. I 100% understand it. It's actually very rational. I tried to leave twice, actually, after when the divorce was filed, and I was like, oh, this is really happening. I tried to run. It was too much. It was too painful. I tried to join the military. I aged out. And because I've had open heart surgery, I got it cleared with a civilian doctor, no problem. They put me on the treadmill, put me through these kind of strenuous situations. I was completely cleared to join the military by a civilian doctor. But a military doctor didn't clear off on it. And then I timed out anyway. I turned 40 and I couldn't join the military. And then I actually got a job. I was offered a job back home in the southern part of the state. Really good job that would have paid me well, especially for that area where it's really a lot cheaper to live. It would have paid me really well. And I probably would have been set up pretty good down there. But I had a talk with my dad about the whole thing. And my dad, because I've never known my dad in person. I've known my dad in person as a young child and for a little while as a teenager. But I have a great relationship with my father. We talk all the time, but it's all over phone. I've only really known my father by phone. And he's become a tremendous stay and a stable point for me. But my dad told me, because he really regrets that. He really regrets leaving. And he said, do not leave. Whatever you do, because I was heartbroken. I was crushed. Oh my gosh, my life's over type of thing. I mean, I really thought so. And he just told me, whatever you do, don't leave. Do not leave. Stay put. And I really took that to heart, and I'm really glad I did. And, I think about that kind of stuff when I watch my son watching elk and the bugley's going on, and it's just perfect. The weather was perfect. It was cooling off. Um, and something else that was really interesting about that, there was a lot of people there gathered around to witness an absolute miracle, to witness an absolute miracle of nature, a miracle of God. That nature's doing what nature does, and it's really awesome to see it play out. Absolute beautiful creatures. And so there was kind of like this synergy in the air, or this we're all in on this together to observe the awe and miracle and wonder that is existence, that is life. And I mean, it was amazing to be wrapped up in it and caught up in it and watch my son watching a miracle. It was worth it to stay, even for little things like that. And here's the thing, dads. If you're going through a divorce, the divorce is over, and you have to, let's say you have 3 or 4 kids, and you have to pay a crap ton of child support, lawyers' bills, way unregulated. It's just out of control. It's out of control. You're dealing with heartache. You're dealing with financial stress. Where are you going to live? I mean, I'm telling you, I lived out of my car for a while, trying to have to. I still had to pay for bills on a house that I didn't live in, and all this stuff, and couch surfing and blah blah blah. You'll do all of that, and you want to run so bad because it's too much. Especially if it came on you unexpectedly and you weren't expecting it. You kind of suspected something was coming down the pipe, but you didn't know, and then it happens. It absolutely just completely levels you. And you feel very aimless. Well, what do I do now? Do I move back home? Do I move home with my parents? People do that. What do I do? You know? And it's like, I don't fully know. And I'm still figuring that out now for myself and my son. But I know that I'm glad I stayed. I know that I'm glad I stayed. And I don't know that I'll ever regret that decision. I don't yet. I think that eventually down the road, I'm trying to talk really loud because I'm not sure how well this records my voice right now. The thing that I realize is that it was worth enduring all of it. It was worth enduring all of it to get the right and the privilege and the ability to be a father. And if you've been through divorce court mafia, you know they really do not like dads. And there's lots of reasons for that. If you ever talk to me in person, you've heard it and you know and you understand. This isn't to judge anybody. This isn't to bash women at all. Moms are fantastic. Most times, moms are fantastic. Very pro mom, of course. And you know, like I was talking to this individual, just because I'm pro father, and I'm pro father's rights, and I'm pro masculine men movement, I'm pro manosphere, I'm pro red pill, that doesn't mean I'm anti-woman or anti-mom. Not at all. But I am saying that there is a very large disparity in parenting after divorce. Very large. 90% of mothers get full custody rights and responsibilities. 90%. So when you say single parent, you really mean single mothers. You're not talking about dads in there. I just want to encourage dads, if you're going through it. Hell, I just talked to a guy the other day. Was worried his ex was going to skip state with his kids, and he wanted to talk about it. I hear it a lot now. Stay in it. Stay in it. Trust the process. It's probably going to bankrupt you. The stress is a lot. It's very high. It's very stressful. But it's an endurance race. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You'll be glad you stayed. You'll be glad you stayed. And here's something that your kids may not even realize at the time. Your kids will be glad you stayed too. I'm going long here, longer than I want to. Let me mention 2 things, a way to think about this in terms of staying, which is what I hope men can do and have the inner fortitude to do it. I remember watching Jurassic Park not that long ago, the original, the good one, the original one. Originals are always better than sequels, right? And there was a point in there that stuck out to me. There's a point where the big T-Rex, if you remember this, tips the car with the kids and the guy, the dinosaur specialist, over this wall, and the car falls into a big tree, right? And then they crawl out of the tree, and the car falls and lands on top of them, but it kind of misses them. And then so they crawl out of the car unscathed, they're fine, and they crawl to this point, safe place. And the young lady, she's screaming. She has this realization about the other guy that was there, and she was like, she's like, he left us. She was yelling like, he left us. He ran away. He left us. And the man looks right at her, dead center, and just straight in the eyes and says, "But that's not what I'm gonna do." And I think that was very strong for me when I watched that a couple of months back. That maybe things are, I don't know. Lots of men have left, and I understand why. To some degree. To some degree. People leave, people move on, people give up, right? And it's like you have to have this just dead eye, dead center, straight on, plant a stake in the ground, be just an absolute bulwark for your children, and be able to look at them in the face and just say, "That's not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm doing. I didn't leave, and I'm not leaving," right? Now, like for myself, for instance, there'll be a time where I may be able to leave. My son will be older. He won't need me as much, in theory, and we'll have raised him right, and there'll be a point where he can kind of launch out and branch out and not need me as much. And at that point, I mean, I will probably likely leave the area, but not yet, not now. And so for now, it's just this constant like, that's not what I'm going to do. That's not what I'm going to do. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm not leaving my son. I'm not leaving my children. You have to have that mentality. Even if you have to have, and I remember talking to a lawyer about this when the whole thing was going down, and she told me honestly, she was like, you'll likely get a bad dad schedule where you get every other weekend and a few weeks during the summer. And she was like, if that's what you want, these are the things that you can do. But if that's not what you want, these are the things that you need. And I was like, I can't do that. They call it a bad dad schedule, and that just happens to be how things land, typically. Most of those dads aren't bad dads. They're not deadbeats. It's just they have to work. They have to make a living. They have to pay a crap ton of child support and spousal support, usually, and so on and so forth. They have to eat, too, so they have to work all the time, and then they get to see their kids sometimes. I was like, man, I'm not doing that. Maybe eventually that will happen that way, but not right now. I'm not doing that. So that's the one thing with that movie Jurassic Park. He left us. He ran out. He left us. And it's like, that's not what I'm going to do, right? And it's worth it to stay. The other thing is, I won't go into this a lot because I'm trying to keep these things real short. The story of the prodigal son. We've all heard it. There's a tremendous amount of meaning in that story. I'm only going to pull one part of this out. You know the story. The son wants his wages and his inheritance. He goes and he spends all this money and he starts sleeping with prostitutes. Riotous living, it calls it, like just this sinful, bad way of living, whatever. And there's this point where he's damn near starving to death, and he's like, well, I should go back to my father's house because then at least I can eat. I could go be a servant with my father, and at least I can eat, right? And I'll just read this here. He's going back to see his father and kind of beg for mercy, beg for forgiveness, beg to come back into his care as a servant, not as a son, but as a servant, right? And it says that while the son was still far away, like coming towards him, it says that while the son was still a distance off, his father saw him and had compassion. And he ran and embraced him and kissed his son. And the way this was explained to me is like, the father saw his son coming from a far way off, and perhaps the father was looking, kind of always looking towards the horizon. Is my boy coming back yet? Is my boy coming back yet? Is my kiddo coming? Right? And so the father was looking for his son to come back and that they could make amends. Now, this doesn't always happen this way. Your kids don't always come back to you. Dad, sometimes you have to go and try to approach your children again and make amends and make a right. Either way, it says he ran to his son, he kissed him, he hugged him, and then he throws this big party like, my son is back. My son was lost and now he's found. My son was dead, now he's alive. He's alive to me. The relationship is rekindled, right? There's this, and this is what God is like. There's this constant renewal, constant Um, coming back home type of language throughout Scripture, right? I find that very encouraging. That God Himself encouraged us to reconcile families, reconcile children to fathers, mothers to children, and I'm just going to say it: fathers to mothers, reconciliation. If not ever a marriage, but at least somewhat of a friendship and a good co-parenting, right? Um, I really believe that, and that's fantastic. One more thought. I'm almost done. We're 20 minutes into this. This is too long. I'm going to go into one more thought. This is an important one. Hang in there. This is an important one. I got to thinking about it for divorced kids. My father lived in another state. My mother lived here in Colorado. Myself, I was back and forth. My sister was back and forth. And my brother moved down to Arizona when he was young, when he was a teenager, and has come back off and on. But for the most part, has spent most of his life in Arizona. He was kind of raised there, and I'm really thankful for that. He got out of Colorado and out of the situation that we were in. But I can say with my three siblings, I'm not speaking for them, I'm speaking for myself. But for my three siblings that kind of had this back and forth between Colorado, Arizona, this back and forth, is that they never really settled. They've always been gypsies. They've had gypsy souls. As myself has always had a gypsy soul. And I was back and forth probably more than both of them in this back and forth, going to Arizona, coming back to Colorado, back and forth. And I've always kind of had this transient soul, this gypsy soul that could never quite settle, and this has come out mostly in my work. I've worked a lot of different places, as well as traveled quite a bit, and I've never really had a soul at rest. Now that I'm getting older, I'm in my 40s, things start settling down a bit just because of age and kind of where you're at in life. So you kind of just settle a bit, which is really nice for me. But I've always had a transient soul. I would say the same for my siblings probably in this back and forth. And here's the problem when you get a divorce and you share between parenting time. This is important. Your kids will be raised out of backpacks and they're being taught to be transient. Let me say that again. When you divorce and your kids are going back and forth between parents, which is the best option there is, your kids will be living out of backpacks and they're being taught to be transients, a back and forth, not one solid, specific, particular home. They live at this place for a while, then they live at this place for a while. They live at this place for a while, and then they're going back. And they have this transient lifestyle, back and forth, living out of backpacks. And I have to say that partly, I take full responsibility for my life, for the work that I've had, for all the traveling that I've done. I take full responsibility. But I was taught to be transient and a transient, non-settled soul from the time I was very little. And I still wrestle with that, being a transient. Should I go? Should I stay? Go, stay, back, forth. It's been hard to overcome that into my adult years. So, I'll probably do a different video on that entirely. But I have to say that drawing the line, I'm raising my son. I have an age set in mind where I think it'd be okay for me to go. I'm not sharing that here, but I think there's an age that I have in mind that it'll be okay to start distancing myself geographically. But that back and forth between two healthy parents that love their kid or kids very much is the best option there is. That's really the best, to have two parents involved and loving on their kids. And so, yeah, there's this transient back and forth, but if they only see their father once every 6 months and they're constantly at mom's, I don't. So they know where home is. They know kind of home base, but that's not the best thing for kids. Personally, I prefer that back and forth where they get healthy amounts of both with both parents better than anything. So it's not fully bad because they have two involved parents that are both mutually raising a child. And I think that's the best you can do, and that's okay. But just be careful that raising a transient soul, someone who's never kind of okay where they're at, right? I don't know. That was much longer than I wanted to go. 25 minutes into this, but what are your thoughts on that? I got some interesting videos coming up. I don't know. Stay or go. Moms stay. Dads stay. You're gonna divorce each other. You don't be married anymore. Fine, but for your children, both do your best to stay. And again, of course, I talked to a lot of dads, particularly fathers. Divorce court mafia is going to put you through the ringer. Heartbreak is going to put you through the ringer. The uncertainty of things coming that are to come, maybe employment, paying exorbitant amount of finances out because of divorce, things like this, all worth it. Bottom line, all worth it. Stay involved, stay with your kids' lives, and partake and watch the miracle that it is to be a father and raise your children. It's fantastic.